Wife, owner of a large company, discovers her husband was using his position to embezzle huge sums and plan a secret getaway with his mistress. Jennifer had always been a determined woman, shaped by discipline and ambition. An heir to a solid engineering company, she had turned her father's business into an empire, driven by a passion for success and a commitment to excellence. Decisive and demanding, Jennifer was admired and at times feared for her ability to make precise decisions and for the foresight she brought to every project. Her marriage to Robert seemed to be the perfect complement to her life. He, with his calm presence and charisma, brought balance to Jennifer's intense routine, something she found essential. Confident in their love, she had placed him in a high-ranking position within the company, believing they formed an unbreakable partnership, both in life and in business, a union sealed by their mutual commitment to success and loyalty. That day, as usual, Jennifer and Robert were heading to the company together. In the car, Jennifer gazed out the window, watching the city, while Robert, behind the wheel, kept a calm and focused expression. He drove with his usual composure, and their conversation flowed naturally, full of details about the day ahead. "So, what's the plan for today?" Jennifer asked, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "Well, today there's a small change," Robert replied with a slight smile, his eyes focused on the road. "I need to stop by a client before going to the office. He asked to talk in person before anything else." "Oh, really? What's it about? A new project we're negotiating?" Jennifer asked with genuine interest, curious to understand the situation. "It's one of those old clients," he explained, shrugging. "He mentioned something about a contract revision and some details he wanted to discuss in person." Jennifer nodded, satisfied with the explanation. She had always valued the closeness with clients and knew how important these informal meetings could be for strengthening business relationships. "Great. Let me know how it goes. If you need any materials or support from the team, just let me know." Robert smiled, grateful. "Definitely, I'll let you know." Minutes later, they arrived at the company building, and Robert parked the car in front of the entrance. "Well, I'll see you in a bit. Good luck with the reports today," he said with a smile. "Thanks," Jennifer replied, leaning in to give him a quick kiss before getting out of the car. "And good luck with the client. Let me know if you need anything." Robert nodded, watching her walk into the building before heading to his appointment. Once inside the building, Jennifer was greeted by Ashley, her secretary, who was waiting for her with an efficient and formal posture. "Good morning, Mrs. Jennifer. I have some reports that need your attention. May I bring them to your office in a few minutes?" "Good morning, Ashley," Jennifer replied, smiling. "Of course, bring them as soon as they're ready. I'll get a few things done here in the meantime." Jennifer went up to her office, where she settled at her desk, organizing papers and turning on her computer. She used the time to review some news, browsing through articles and industry updates while waiting for Ashley to bring the reports. After a few minutes, Ashley entered with a stack of documents and a tablet in hand, placing them on Jennifer's desk carefully. "These are the financial reports for the last quarter, Mrs. I've organized the performance data by sector, and I've also included some updates on the most recent contracts," Ashley said, pointing to the key points with a light precision. "There's a section referring to some transfers made to accounts outside of our usual partners." Jennifer frowned, picking up the first page of the report and flipping through the pages. "Different accounts? This seems a bit strange. What are these amounts?" "Well, here are some of the numbers," Ashley explained, showing the specific section. "Some of the transfers appear to be larger amounts than we usually see, but since I couldn't find anything in the authorization files, I assumed it was a sector-specific issue." Jennifer stayed silent, going through the numbers and trying to better understand what those values meant. "Who authorized these transfers, Ashley? Did you manage to check?" Ashley shook her head, hesitating. No, Mrs. I couldn't see that in the system before bringing the report. I believe it may have been an internal approval, but I confess I missed it. Jennifer looked at her calmly, nodding to reassure her. It's okay, Ashley. Don't worry. Leave the reports with me. I want to take a closer look. I'll call you if I need anything. Ashley thanked her and left, leaving the documents on the desk. Once alone, Jennifer examined the report more carefully. Every listed transfer seemed to be linked to unknown accounts, with amounts that didn't make sense within the company's usual flow. Driven by curiosity, and now a slight unease, she opened the company's internal system and began tracking the authorizations for those payments. It was then that her gaze froze on the screen. Each of the transfers had been approved by Robert. Jennifer felt a discomforting surprise. Why had he authorized such large amounts for accounts not registered as partners? As a director, he did have the prerogative to approve some transactions, but they always maintained transparent communication about such operations. Jennifer hesitated for a few seconds before grabbing her phone and sending him a direct message. When you're done with the client meeting, come to my office. I need to talk to you about some authorizations. A few hours later, Robert appeared at Jennifer's office door with that familiar smile that always seemed so reliable. You wanted to talk to me? He said, entering and closing the door behind him. Yes, Robert, Jennifer replied in a calm tone. I was reviewing some reports, and I noticed you authorized several considerable transfers. They're accounts I don't recognize as usual. Can you explain what this is about? Robert briefly looked away, adjusting the papers in his hand before responding. Sure, dear, he said, without looking directly at her. These transfers are part of a marketing project I wanted to speed up. It's a short-term investment that should bring good returns for the company, so I authorized them to accelerate the process. Jennifer nodded slowly, analyzing his every word. I see, she said, trying to sound convincing. A marketing project, something we passed through committee approval, right? Yes, he replied quickly, but still not meeting her gaze. I made sure to align everything with them. I didn't want to burden you with another detail. I thought it would be an easy, low-risk decision. She noticed he was avoiding her eyes and that his responses, though technically coherent, sounded generic, vague, as if there was a lack of depth in the explanation. With her experience in business, Jennifer realized something wasn't adding up. However, she kept a calm expression, nodding with a slight smile. Good, she said softly. I trust your decisions, Robert. Thanks for clearing that up. Of course, anything you need, I'm here, he said, now more relaxed, leaving the room after a brief nod. Once alone, Jennifer let out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Something was wrong. She knew it. That vague explanation, the avoidance of eye contact, the hesitation to respond firmly. Robert was hiding something. From then on, Jennifer began watching him more closely, analyzing every interaction, every response, trying to catch any hint he might let slip. In the days that followed, Jennifer became even more convinced that something was deeply wrong. Robert's vague answers and his clear discomfort whenever she asked about that marketing project only made her more uneasy. Determined to understand what was truly happening, Jennifer called Ashley for a private conversation in her office, hoping to get some answers. Ashley, I need to ask you something about the client Robert has been meeting with, Jennifer began, trying to keep her voice casual, but with an undertone of urgency. He mentioned he's been meeting with an old client, but this wasn't on our agenda. Do you know who this client is? Ashley frowned, clearly confused. I'm sorry, Mrs. Jennifer, but I have no idea who that client is. Robert hasn't asked me to schedule any meetings with external clients in the last few months. That confirmation made Jennifer even more uneasy. He said it was related to a specific project and that the client preferred to talk to him directly, I thought it was something urgent, but you haven't seen anything in the schedules or documents." Ashley shook her head, even more intrigued. "No, Mrs. I haven't seen anything. I really don't know which client he's talking about." Jennifer took a deep breath, feeling the tension rise. "Thanks, Ashley. You can go back to work. I just wanted to clear that up." Once Ashley left, Jennifer stayed there, reflecting. There was no longer any doubt in her mind that something very serious was happening and Robert was hiding information. Determined to uncover the truth, she grabbed her phone and searched for a private detective online. After a few minutes, she found a well-recommended professional and called to schedule a meeting that same afternoon. At the agreed time, the detective arrived. Ashley led him to Jennifer's office, where he entered with a professional and discreet look. He extended his hand and introduced himself in a firm tone. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Jennifer. I'm Charles, the private investigator you contacted. How can I assist you?" Jennifer invited him to sit, and after closing the door, began to explain. "Charles, I called you here because I suspect my husband, Robert, is involved in something that compromises the company, and maybe our marriage. In the last few days, he mentioned meetings with a client I don't recognize. I also have these reports showing transfers to accounts that aren't part of our usual suppliers or partners." She showed him the report, pointing out the transfers. "I want you to investigate who this mysterious client is and, most importantly, find out who owns these accounts." The detective examined the documents carefully, flipping through the pages and observing the values and dates. "I understand, ma'am. So my task is to identify the client and investigate the accounts linked to these transfers. Also, it would be helpful to know who Robert meets with outside of business hours." "Exactly," Jennifer confirmed, sighing. "We need to know what's really going on. If there's something he's hiding, I don't want to be the last to find out." Charles nodded. "I'll do my best to give you answers. It may take a few weeks, but I'll dedicate myself fully to this case. I'll contact you as soon as I have any updates." Jennifer thanked him, shaking his hand. "I count on your discretion, Charles." After the farewell, Jennifer remained alone in her office, anxiously awaiting the results of the investigation. A few weeks later, Charles returned, this time with a serious expression. Ashley led him into Jennifer's office, and he entered with a mix of empathy and professionalism. Jennifer felt a chill in her stomach upon seeing his expression. "I have some information, Mrs. Jennifer," he said, sitting down, "but I must warn you, it's not exactly good news." She nodded, tense. "Please tell me everything." Charles pulled out a folder from his bag and opened it, revealing some photos. These were taken in the last few weeks. Robert was frequently seen with this woman. He pointed to a photo of a young woman with dark hair in an intimate pose with Robert. "Her name is Cynthia. It seems they have a relationship that goes beyond the professional." Jennifer felt her heart tighten, but remained silent as Charles continued. "Also, I investigated the accounts where the transfers were made. It turns out Cynthia owns these accounts, but they were created under fake company names. Essentially, Robert is funneling company money into these accounts, all under her control." Jennifer looked at the photos and documents in shock, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness. "So he's embezzling money from the company to keep this mistress?" Charles nodded. "Everything points to that. These deposits were made directly to her accounts, and from what I've gathered, he seems to be planning a life with her somewhere else." Jennifer took a deep breath, trying to keep her composure. "Thank you, Charles. Your work was excellent." She grabbed an envelope she had prepared earlier and handed it to him. "Here's the payment for your service. I know I made the right choice hiring you." Charles accepted the envelope and bid her farewell with a nod. "If you need anything else, I'm at your disposal." After the detective left, Jennifer remained there, motionless. trying to absorb the blow she had just received. How could Robert have done this to her? After everything they had built together, he chose to betray her and even put the company at risk that she had worked so hard for. Sadness soon gave way to cold determination. She would not let this betrayal go unpunished. Determined, she grabbed her phone, ordered a taxi, and went directly to her trusted lawyer, Anthony's office. When she arrived, she was met with surprise, but also respect. "Mrs. Jennifer, what a pleasure to see you," said Anthony, shaking her hand. "What brings you here so urgently?" Jennifer sat down, breathing deeply. "Anthony, I'm here because I've discovered something serious about Robert. I need your help to initiate a process that will involve both the company and our personal life." She then explained in detail the entire investigation, from the suspicious transfers to the confirmation of the affair and the embezzlement of money into fake company accounts. Anthony listened attentively, taking notes and reflecting with a serious air. "Jennifer, what you're telling me is extremely serious. If these transfers were truly made to fake company accounts and Robert embezzled company funds, he's committing a serious financial crime. The law is strict in this regard, and he could face imprisonment, especially given the amount of the embezzled funds." Jennifer nodded with a determined expression. "I want him to pay for this, Anthony. It's not just about the betrayal, but the lack of respect and the breach of trust he showed. He was willing to destroy everything we built to keep a relationship with someone else." Anthony agreed, adjusting his glasses. "That's completely understandable, but I must warn you that once the process is opened, he will have no right to anything from the company. Furthermore, the legal implications could be severe, and he may face years in prison for fraud and misappropriation of funds." Jennifer took a deep breath, making the final decision. "That's what I want. He needs to face the consequences of what he did. Start the process, Anthony. Robert must pay for what he's done." Anthony nodded, placing his hand over Jennifer's in a supportive gesture. "Leave everything to me. I'll make sure justice is done." With the process underway, Jennifer and Anthony kept in frequent contact. At the office, Anthony regularly updated Jennifer on each new phase of the process, the judicial deadlines, and the collection of evidence to ensure Robert's conviction. Jennifer remained strong and calm, listening to each explanation attentively, though at times her eyes betrayed a mixture of hurt and frustration. In front of Robert, however, Jennifer acted as if everything were normal. She maintained a professional demeanor, a controlled smile, and a neutral tone of voice, not letting any suspicion show. She knew the truth would soon come to light, and she was just waiting for the right moment. Anthony, noticing the weight of the situation, once showed concern. "Jennifer, are you sure you want to go through with all this without confronting him directly? I know the process is moving forward, but I can imagine the emotional toll." Jennifer sighed, but remained determined. "I trusted him for too long, Anthony. If I confront him now, he'll try to manipulate the situation. I'd rather he learns the truth when he has no way out." Anthony nodded, understanding her choice. "I understand, and I'm with you in whatever you need." A few days passed, and the routine continued, seemingly peacefully, between Jennifer and Robert. He had no idea that the process was advancing and that soon he would face the consequences of his actions. But one night, while Jennifer was in the bedroom and Robert was watching TV in the living room, a loud knock on the door interrupted the silence of the house. Robert stood up and went to answer it, unaware of anything. When he opened the door, he saw two police officers and a man in a suit, wearing a formal and firm expression. "Mr. Robert, good evening. I'm a bailiff, and I'm here with an arrest warrant in your name." Robert stood stunned, blinking repeatedly, as if trying to understand what was happening. "An arrest warrant? There must be some mistake," he stammered, trying to maintain composure. I didn't do anything wrong." The officer kept a firm tone. Mr. Robert, we have substantial evidence that you are involved in embezzlement and corporate fraud. We ask that you come with us without resistance. Robert looked around, desperate, and started to retreat, calling for Jennifer in a pleading tone. Jennifer, come here. Explain to them that this is a mistake. They need to understand. At the sound of her name, Jennifer slowly descended the stairs, unhurried, stopping in the middle of the room. She observed the scene before her with a look that mixed calm and determination. Robert, seeing her, breathed a sigh of relief, as if her presence were his salvation. Jennifer, please, you need to talk to them. Tell them it's all a misunderstanding. Jennifer crossed her arms and looked at him, finally letting the disappointment show in her eyes. A misunderstanding, Robert? She said with a cold and controlled tone. Do you really think I wouldn't find out what you've done? The embezzling, the betrayal. Do you think I wouldn't notice that you've been stealing from the company I built with so much effort? Robert froze, her words cutting through him like a blow. He tried to argue, his voice trembling and pleading. Jennifer, I can explain. It was a mistake. I felt so alone. You were always so busy. I needed someone. Jennifer interrupted, raising her hand. Alone? Robert, is that an excuse to steal from our company? To betray me so vilely? Her eyes were full of hurt, but she remained firm. The fault is yours, and you know it. Now pay for what you've done. He tried again, reaching out to her. Please, Jennifer, listen to me. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. Give me a chance. But Jennifer remained unmoving. Enough, Robert. I've heard enough. Officers, take him away. The officers handcuffed him and escorted him out of the house. Robert looked at her one last time, hoping for some compassion, but Jennifer remained firm, showing no weakness. She watched him disappear through the door, and once the house was silent, she felt a mix of relief and sadness, realizing that finally he was out of her life. In the following days, Anthony went to Jennifer's office to discuss the results of the process. He entered with a serene expression and explained in detail the outcome of the conviction. Jennifer, Robert was convicted of fraud and embezzlement, and the sentence could lead him to serve a long prison term. He will have no claim to anything from the company, as we had predicted. Jennifer sighed, relieved. Finally, justice has been served. Now I can move on without that weight. Anthony paused before continuing. There's something else I'd like to discuss with you. We know that Cynthia, the woman Robert was involved with, played a role in some of the financial schemes. If you'd like, we can include her in the process as an accomplice. Jennifer thought for a moment before responding. Actually, Anthony, I'd prefer to talk to Cynthia before making any decisions. I need to understand better what happened. Anthony nodded respectfully. Of course, Jennifer. I understand your perspective. I'll do whatever you decide. After the conversation, they said their goodbyes, and that same day, Jennifer contacted Charles, the detective, to get Cynthia's address. He provided the location without hesitation, and Jennifer headed there, determined to close this chapter once and for all. Arriving at the address, Jennifer took a deep breath before knocking on the door. After a few moments, the door opened, and a young woman with dark hair looked at her, surprised. Yes? Who are you? My name is Jennifer, she said in a firm tone. I'm Robert's wife. Cynthia sighed, looking down in resignation. I guess it's no use hiding anymore, right? She opened the door, letting Jennifer in. Come in. You can sit if you want. Jennifer accepted the invitation, sitting on the couch. Cynthia, still unsettled, sat across from her. So, I guess you want to understand what happened, Cynthia said, her voice hesitant. Yes, Jennifer replied, cold but curious. I want to hear from you how it all started. Cynthia took a deep breath before beginning. I met Robert a few years ago. He approached me like he was a free man, someone looking for a fresh start. I never knew he was married. He was always careful to hide that. Our relationship seemed real, until one day he started asking me to open some accounts in the name of companies he said were for the future we were building together. Jennifer listened in silence, absorbing every word. Cynthia continued, visibly uncomfortable. He convinced me it was an investment for both of us, for what we were planning. But one day he confessed he was married. I wanted to end it right there, but he threatened me. He said if I left him, he would report me for theft. Jennifer felt a wave of sadness as she realized how far Robert had gone. So he manipulated you to stay with him? Cynthia nodded, her eyes welling up. Yes, I was scared. He made me believe that if I tried to leave, my life would be ruined. And recently, he started talking about a plan to run away with me to another country. I was terrified. Jennifer took a deep breath, processing the truth. Robert was arrested, she finally said. As for you, I asked that your name not be included in the process because I needed to hear your story. Cynthia sighed in relief, surprised by the unexpected compassion. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm so sorry for everything that happened. If I had known he was married, I would never have gotten involved. Jennifer nodded slowly. Now that I understand your story, I know you were as much a victim as I was. I won't bother you anymore. I believe he's already received what he deserves. The two women exchanged a silent, understanding look, and Jennifer stood up, extending her hand to Cynthia. I hope you find peace after all this, Jennifer said with an empathetic tone. Thank you, Jennifer, Cynthia responded, shaking her hand. I wish the same for you. Jennifer left that house with one less weight. Finally, she felt like she could move on, free from the betrayal and ready to start over without the shadows of the past. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.